Hey, all you beautiful people out there, and welcome to my channel for another rebuttal. If you're new, welcome. I appreciate it. For my subscribers, welcome back. If you are new, thanks for checking me out and giving me a chance. So, anyway, if you like this kind of content, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to me? I'm sure you won't be disappointed. And why don't you go ahead and check out the other videos I've already uploaded? Speaking of getting on with the video, grab your popcorn and your facepalm gear, get comfortable, and let's go pummel some creationism nonsense.
Well, hello once again. I'm chemist John Pendleton, and this is our second conference of a two-part series about the flood. And as we mentioned before, this is so important because the flood explains where all those different rock layers come from, where fossils come from, how the fossils were made almost in about the same period of time. Not all of them, but a good share of them. And also, especially, it documents God's judgment against sin. Now, in this second part, we want to see some evidences. We began seeing at the end of our last one about Mount Everest. But here's a new one that I just got from the internet. This is fantastic. In the Andes Mountains of Peru, there are these giant fossilized oysters. You can see the people standing there. There are some that are almost 3 feet in diameter. And they're fossilized, closed. They weren't eaten. They were fossilized shut, like they'd been buried in some kind of a silt or mud and couldn't open and ended up fossilized that way. The problem is they're at 13,000 feet.
You know, John, you just keep surprising me with all of your dumb statements. Okay, so let's talk about the bivalves of which oysters are a part first, and then I will address the mountains, since you obviously cannot read. Bivalves have two valves or shells that are connected by a ligament or a hinge, and they close these valves when they are threatened by either predation or, get this, John, or mechanical damage. Now let's get to the mountain part. You might want to get a pen and a paper for this one, John, because it's going to be a little bit past your education level. So, you need to look this stuff up. Okay, three basic types of mountains: fold mountains, volcanic mountains, and block mountains. Now, we're going to go through these one at a time, not in depth, just a little bit. But the really, really important thing you need to get, John, is all of these types of mountains at one time were under the sea. Really important that you get that. Movement of earth plates at the boundary create volcanoes, which erupt and then form volcanic mountains. This generally happens in the Ring of Fire, which is in the Pacific. Other mountains, called fold mountains, are formed when plates undergo subduction, as illustrated in this picture. This is how most continental mountains are formed. So, yeah. Block mountains or fault block mountains can result when a fault is raised or tilted. An example of these kinds of mountains are the Sierra Nevadas. Now let's get back to those fossilized oysters you were so thrilled about. So, you know, when I said, remember that oysters close their shells when they are threatened with mechanical damage, what do you think mountain forming is? It is very, very, very damaging to living things, John.
picture from the side of the Grand Canyon. Now, the Grand Canyon is a worldwide monument. But here's an interesting thing. If we have two people standing on the side of the Grand Canyon, one's an evolutionist, it says, wow, look at what a little water did over a long, long period of time. We have a creationist, a believer in the Bible, standing there says, wow, we look at what a lot of water did in very little time. And here we have an excellent example that could be applied to everything we've talked about before and after that is very important. And that is that too many people think that it's a battle of sorting out different evidences. It's not a matter of sorting out different evidences. It's the fact that the real battle is over the same evidence. See, both the evolutionist and the creationist both see the Grand Canyon. We both have the same evidence. And so the thing is we have to see how are we going to explain that, and how are we going to do further studies.
Sweet. We get to talk about the Grand Canyon some more. But you know, John, truth is not subject to people's perceptions or people's feelings or people standing at the side of a canyon. Truth consists of that which we have evidence for and which comports to reality. And unfortunately for you, we have evidence that the Grand Canyon was formed gradually by the Colorado River over time. And just as an aside, John, there is no such word as evidences. It is just plain evidence. Oh, please, don't even pretend that you care about explanations and studies, because you don't. None of you creationists do. All you do is, this is what my book says, and that's good enough for you. Well, you know, John, for the rest of us that actually have brains, it's not good enough. So go back to your church.
If the flood occurred, then it laid down layers and layers and layers of mud. And this kind of a curvature cut in the ground could not occur if it was rock. It would never make that kind of a curve. But if it was mud, it could cut through there, and often does when the ground is soft, make very tight curves and irregular curves. Now, as we study the geography high up above the Grand Canyon, we see here the states of Utah and Arizona where the Grand Canyon is, but also of Utah and Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. And we can see there from the geography that there used to be two large lakes up above the Grand Canyon.
Okay, John, I know it's hard for you to think, but let's just think this through. You see, if it was mud when this formed, that little island that you show, yeah, that wouldn't be there. So it makes no goddamn sense. You should also wonder that if this was all mud, then how come there are different colors in the Grand Canyon? You know, the things that geologists refer to as strata. Why are they there, John? And water follows the path of least resistance. Also, I can't find anything about paleo lakes above the Grand Canyon, not even on creationist websites. Might want to rethink that one, John. This is a Kent Hovinism, even though Kent Hovind steals this stuff and it's probably not even his. But aside from that, you're stepping all over your own arguments, you klutz. I mean, first you argue that the Grand Canyon was formed during the worldwide flood, which is ridiculous, and now you're saying it was formed due to the lakes above the canyon. I know making up your damn mind isn't a strong suit of yours, John, but you really need to make up your mind on this. I mean, your arguments contradict themselves. How stupid do people have to be to buy this shit?
where on the right hand side here where the arrow is, it enters the canyon at an elevation of 2,800 feet above sea level. But it cuts out a place, the flow is towards the left or towards the west. The highest part actually cut out of the canyon is 6,000 feet above sea level. And the Colorado River leaves the canyon at an elevation of 1,800 feet above sea level. Now, folks, you know water does not go uphill. Water flows downhill. But if all that water is coming out of those lakes, it could actually build up so much to a height that it get to a height of 6,000 feet and cut the canyon out at that level, and eventually the water ran out.
Okay, so let's talk about the Kaibab uplift, which is what you're talking about but not saying. Why do you do this, John? By the way, no geologist is dumb enough to think that water runs uphill. That is creationist nonsense. And yeah, the Kaibab used to be under the sea. Go figure. So why is the Kaibab now at 9,000 feet? Well, plate tectonics got it to the point where it was at 9,000 feet, and then the Colorado River took over and carved the canyon. So it was uplift and carving of the river. Uplift likely occurred during the Laramide orogeny, or mountain building, 70 million to 40 million years ago. However, normal angle subduction produces volcanoes. So why is the Kaibab uplift flat? Well, it has to do with the subduction angle. While normal angle subduction leads to volcanoes, shallow angle subduction leads to plateaus. So you see, John, geology has an explanation of why the Grand Canyon is the way it is, and no uphill flowing water is needed. That is the dumbest thing you've said so far.
Now, another indication of the flood is this metal pot that's being held and displayed here. And here's a testimony about it from Silver Springs, Arkansas, that was given on the 27th of November, 1948. It says, this is by Frank J. Kimmond. While I was working in the municipal electric plant in Thomas, Oklahoma in 1912, I came upon a solid chunk of coal which was too large for us to use. I broke it with a sledgehammer. This iron pot fell from the center, leaving the impression or mold of the pot in a piece of coal. Jim Stull, an employee of the company, witnessed the breaking of the coal and saw the pot fall out. I traced the source of the coal and found that it came from Wilburton, Oklahoma mines, and is testified before the Notary Public, Julia Eldred.
There's so much wrong with this that I don't even know where to begin. Well, okay. So, first of all, testimony is not evidence. Never has been, never will be. Also, I have to wonder, why did this dude take 36 years to come forward with this find? And another thing, why did he feel a pressing need to get a notary public involved? I don't know, it sounds kind of fishy to me. Aside from that, I can't find this claim anywhere except on creationist websites. Gee, I wonder why that is. And I find it very amusing that nobody bothered to track down this Jim Stahl to get his perspective. I mean, if this was such an important find, somebody would have had the wherewithal to track down this Jim Stahl to even ask him whether this is true or not, right? Last but not least, this is to be found in the Creation Evidence Museum, which is run by one Carl Baugh. And Carl Baugh never lets anyone date the quote unquote artifacts in his museum.
We're often told that coal is millions of years old, and yet if there's a pot there, an iron pot, obviously a human made it. So again, this is an indication that the flood occurred bearing all this stuff together rapidly, not over millions of years. Here we have a large vein of coal. It's about 1,000 yards deep, and they say that for every 10 inches of coal, you need 100 inches of vegetable material, wood shavings, and wood. Well, if this is 100 yards deep, that means that we had 1,000 yards of material originally brought together in one place, and then a large layer of mud laid on top that turned to rock. What natural process is there that could do such a thing? Well, it sure sounds to me like a worldwide flood would be just the ideal thing, to collect all that vegetation and then throw some mud on top, and it turns into coal.
Oh, goody, I get to talk about coal. But first, let's talk about peat because coal is made from peat. Peat is the accumulation of plant material in wetlands. Coal is made from the physical and chemical processes that happens to peat over time. If peat is buried, these physical and chemical processes can act on the peat, which then turns the peat into coal. Burial is important because the sediments overlying the peat will squeeze out the moisture of the peat and also bury the peat deeper into the earth, and then the peat would be subject to higher temperatures. Heat, time, and pressure then will change the peat into differing ranks of coal, and once a certain rank of coal is achieved, the process is then irreversible. So the vegetation died and fell into the swamps, and then more vegetation grew and died and fell into the swamps, and more vegetation grew and died and fell into the swamps. You get the picture. So, yes, this takes millions of years. Not to mention the fact that coal nowadays is found in places where there are no swamps. So, tell me, John, how could that be? Could it be that maybe, just maybe, environments weren't always the same as they are now? Use your brain, John. I know you have to dust off the cobwebs, but I have faith in you, buddy. I know you can do it. Just dust off the cobwebs and rev up that engine and go for it.
This one is even more impressive. The bottom part of this tree is turned into coal. The top part of the tree is turned into rock. Now you have two options. One is that the worldwide flood laid this all down quickly. The top part was vegetable material that turned into coal. The top part was the bottom part was vegetable material that turned into coal. Top part was mud that petrified the tree into rock. Now you have either that happened by the flood, or they say that the earth grows in the depth of the soil about 1 centimeter every 1,000 years. That means that this tree grew through rock. So you pick which one you're going to believe.
Jesus, John. Coal is rock. Even I know that. Come on, get it together. And I can't find your image anywhere, but that's okay. Let's just pretend that this is real, okay? Don't you see how this argues against your position? This actually argues for lots of time. Now, again, John, I know it's hard for you to think, but just try. if this image was real, which I'm not really sure it is, but let's go with it, okay? If it was made in the same environment, i.e., the flood, it would not be half coal and the other traditional rock. It would be all traditional rock. I just think it's so goddamn funny how you inadvertently undermine your own position. I mean, it just goes to show you how stupid this is, okay? Come on, get a life, get a brain, and start thinking. By the way, just because I can't find this image doesn't mean it's not out there. If any of my viewers can find it and send it to me so I can investigate it further, I would really appreciate it. But right now, I'm just going to consider that it isn't real. And it really doesn't matter anyway.
One other excellent example of the flood are the diatoms. Now, the diatoms are beautiful gems that live in the oceans. They are microscopic and they are beautifully formed. Now, when a lot of especially hot water will hit these, they will die. They will die literally by the millions. And then they just begin slowly filtering down to the bottom of the ocean.
Should I even be here for this section? Oh my God, you're a moron. You're defeating your own argument. Diatoms are not evidence of a worldwide flood. You said it yourself. They need hot water in order to die. And to be honest, I don't even know if that's right. But it is kind of funny. So let's just let John have this. Let's say hot water is required for diatoms to die by the millions. Let's give him that because it's funny. In this worldwide flood, which you said yourself, the earth had to accommodate itself. So, rocks had to be soft, not mud. Rock is not synonym for mud, but soft. You also said the continents were shifting, which creates enormous heat. And you yourself acknowledged that there was heat in the oceans. So, how did anything in the oceans survive? Now, you take a lot of your shit from Answers in Genesis, so I'm just going to assume, and sue me if it's unfair, that you believe that no ocean dwelling animal had to be in the ark. So thank you once again for defeating your own argument. Makes my job a little easier.
Well, there's this, and this is kind of my idea what started the flood. I could be wrong in this, but it's been helpful to some people and it seems to fit together with the facts. We're doing more investigation, but I'd like to share it because it's been helpful. They say that there was a big meteorite that fell down by the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico that caused such a shock wave that killed the dinosaurs. Now, I don't doubt that meteorites and comets could have hit the Earth, probably did hit the Earth, and provoke that canopy of water to begin coming down. What I propose, and let me explain the different parts, is that I think that a big comet hit the Earth. Now, comets are basically a big ball of ice, and it's about 200 degrees centigrade below zero. Basically, the temperature that outer space is, which is just 3 degrees Kelvin. Now, as it came closer to the Earth, I believe it separated into different pieces which impacted the Earth. Some of these impacts, I believe, were in the area of Hudson Bay. As you can see, the curves on the shoreline. Here in the lower southeastern corner, you see almost a complete semicircle where there was some kind of a meteorite or comet impact.
Yeah, I know I've had two face palms in this video, but I mean, come on. You gotta give me some leniency listening to all this crap. John is completely ridiculous in this, and it is so stupid. Why do you come on TV and make yourself look stupid? First of all, you have utterly failed to prove that there was a canopy of water over the earth. In fact, it is impossible to have a canopy of water over the earth. And now, from that disproven premise, you want us to proceed. I promised you I was going to tell you why I don't think John is a scientist. And here it is, folks. He doesn't even know how science works. You can't not prove something and then go ahead and work off that premise to try to prove something else. Also, any chemist worth his salt would know that 3 degrees Kelvin is not minus 200 degrees centigrade. By the way, degrees Kelvin doesn't even make sense. It is just Kelvin, you idiot. Minus 200 degrees Celsius is 73 Kelvin, which is why I don't think John is a chemist, because any chemist worth his salt is going to know this very obvious fact. I mean, come on, John, do better. Now, I know this blatantly obvious fact because I took biology, physics, and chemistry in college, and I'm not even a chemist. However, there are people who don't know this. And how many morons do you think are going to be running around thinking that minus 200 degrees Celsius is 3 Kelvin because of this idiot? Now, John prattles on about this supposed comet breaking into pieces and throwing ice everywhere, which is amazingly dumb. But logic has already done the math on this, so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. If you want to see the math, go watch Logic's channel. It's in Hello, I'm a Scientist. But I do want to point out one more thing before I go, and that is that anything that comes through our atmosphere is going to burn up, John. How do you not know this? I mean, 10-year-olds know this.
We have, for example, in Siberia, there's an estimated still 5 million frozen mammoths in the sludge and mud and ice of Siberia. Now, these mammoths were not cold climate animals. Now, they were hairy, but the thing is the polar bear, for every hair that the polar bear has, he has a gland that produces a special oil that preserves the heat in his body. The mammoth is very similar to the sloth in that it's a hairy creature too, but that this hair does not have a gland to produce oil to keep the heat. It's more to control their body temperature. Mammoths have been found with food still in their mouth, still in their gut, that is tropical vegetation. As we said, the earth before the flood was very tropical, both at the poles as well as the equator.
Ugh. I was going to stop there, but then John throws out this massively stupid false claim about mammoths. So, yeah. Uh, sorry guys. As usual, John gives no citation for this claim, but luckily for me, somebody had the wherewithal to track this claim down, and no surprise, it's only in creationist books and creationist websites. Come on, John. This claim dates back to a single 1960 article in the Saturday Evening Post by one Yvonne Sanderson. However, he wasn't the first to report on it, and he got his information by, wait for it, creationists. I could dismiss this outright, but let's just go through it for the hell of it. So, these creationists say that the mammoths were flash frozen, that is, frozen so suddenly that they still had buttercups in their teeth and stomach. Dr. Otto Hertz, the mammoth discoverer, said that more than likely it fell into a mud pit and froze over, and that the decrepit state of the skin is more than enough to debunk this nonsense. Especially the very stupid claim that people had dined on woolly mammoth meat that had been flash frozen. Did I forget to mention that? Yeah, these creationists are dumb enough to think that people dined on woolly mammoth meat. This claim actually dates back all the way to 1822 when it was made by George Cuvier, who was an avowed catastrophist who didn't think that mammoths could be preserved like that, except that if they were flash frozen. And yeah, he was a catastrophist. Now, I wonder why you only have a confirmation bias for those things that confirm your already deeply held belief that the earth is young and that a worldwide flood happened. Why is that, John? Why is that? This is yet another reason I don't think you are a real scientist. A real scientist hypothesizes things and tests them. And if and when that hypothesis proves to be false, they throw it in the garbage. Shout out to these lovely people who allow me to do what it is that I do in calling out this crap. If you would like to join, you can join for as little as 99 cents a month. All you have to do is click the join button at the bottom of the screen. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and leave a comment in the comment section. I read all of your comments and it also helps the algorithm. So, in leaving a comment, you will also help me. Thank you very much. Please check out the rest of my available content. And until later, have a great day, and I will see you when I see you. So, toodaloo.